As we crest over the mid-season hump, the curveball of the superspeedway tracks are behind us, and ahead are more familiar turns. It's an Italian classic that predates even these vintage machines. Imola plays host today as we get ready to watch round 7 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joey Atterbury, and with me in the booth today is Ozzy Puhaka. Behind the scenes is our director, Bradley Cooper, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Even with a racetrack that's nearly 75 years old, it's good to get a refresher with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo e Dino Ferrari, but most race fans know this place as simply Imola. This circuit in the northern part of Italy has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in motorsports history. The various tragedies that have marred the track left no choice but to alter it in the name of safety. While it originally featured mostly fast, sweeping corners, its modern 3-mile or 5-kilometer version is punctuated by tricky chicanes and incredibly technical turns. iRacing includes the Grand Prix layout and a moto version, which adds one more chicane to the front stretch. Tamburello is perhaps the most notorious of the corners for claiming the life of multi-time world champion Ayrton Senna when it was still a single breathtaking turn. Now the Triple Apexer not only offers potential passing opportunities, but catches out drivers quite frequently. While heavy braking zones are everywhere, because few places allow the cars to get up to speed, overtaking is generally seen as an exercise in frustration. As if to almost counteract this quality, the track itself is situated in a gorgeous public park and sends the drivers through the beautifully calming Italian countryside. It also includes a fair bit of elevation change in which the track is split between the higher up back half and the lower first portion. It's no wonder that this place still proves popular with drivers and fans in spite of its difficulties in history. The Tifosi keep returning each and every time the sound of engines roar among the trees, and who can blame them?
It definitely is an Italian classic out there in the countryside, and it plays host to round number 7 here, Ozzy.
Absolutely does. The season has crested its halfway point, and we are now towards the run to the finish line. And Imola with Lotus 49, it's a very interesting track for a variety of reasons. You can see the map here. I'm sure a lot of you watching this at home, you know the track, you know what Imola is going to be like. Well, couple of things change when you take it up with the 49. The front straight, for example, it isn't really a straight. Those small kinks you see on the back shot of the picture right now, well, you know, they actually become corners. You actually have to take care of them, whereas with modern machinery, you just take them flat out, not really think about them. Same with the run-up from Variante Alta to Terivazza, where the downhill braking really becomes an issue. A couple of other places as well, where you could see actual overtaking. You could actually see like lines and precision matter far more than you usually do. And yeah, gonna be 20 laps of exciting racing today.
It always provides some exciting racing, and here are those race details. Round 7 of 12. We're going to be doing 20 laps here at Imola. And as always with these Lotus 49s, it is an open setup so you can tweak and tune on that car as you see fit. You can't pick up any damage. You're going to have to live with it. That's what no spare car means. A drive-through penalty at 17x, disqualification at 25x, the standard Lotus 49 stuff. And there is plenty of room to run off of the racetrack here. So you can get yourself into trouble in those gravel traps as well as the several of the chicanes around this place. But the championship so far, we're right at halfway right now. We have both an F1 and an F2 points championship. Currently, it is Andreas Valenteus leading 21 points over that battle for second place. But check out how close those three drivers are. Jorge Nieva, Seb Tixier, Togo Hisada, only separated by 5 points apiece. Xavier Sanchez nipping at the heels, just a dozen points back there, still in the top 5. And then I've been really impressed. Leo Sequeira have been very consistent this year. Kevin Verbruggen, Bill Tyler, Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado, and Gary Ho, they are all locked into a battle themselves as well. But we also have those F2 point standings.
We absolutely do, and over there it's Michael Griesinger leading by just 2 points over Kurt Clapper. So who's going to take the F2 title on their road to F1? Well, we'll see. Mats Linden is in P number 3, not far off either. Then you got Chen Matson, Jonathan Jourdain, and Roberto Pangrasi in 6th place ahead of Chen Steffen, Matthew Nelson, David Tomaski, and Tobias Haddenby. And a little quick note, what's the F2 all about? Well, they drive with the Lotus 49 machine here, as do the F1 drivers. But it's a championship for those more rookie-oriented drivers, those who are newer drivers to the series, to give them something to fight for as well, which is a great initiative.
And then I believe we also have our Nations Cup here with the L49. And currently, Spain is leading the way over Japan, but it is a tight fight there for second place. Singapore right behind Japan, so it's kind of a battle between the two regulars out there. United States, Singapore, United Kingdom, all within that top 5 there. But it looks like we've got our official starting grid with everybody lined up on the front straightaway. It is your pole sitter and your F1 point standings champion so far, Andreas Valenteus, sitting up front. Istok Vreco with a great qualifying effort, second right now. Nikola Kaki in 3rd place. Jorge Nieva starting 4th. Seb Tixier in 5th. Gary Ho starting 6th. Leo Sequeiro 7th. Richard Watson in 8th. John Olsen 9th. And Laust Olsen in 10th.
Yep, got 2 Olsens rounding out the top 10 in the starting grid, and as we roll on to the next page, you can see in 11th Benjamin Jogo, then it's David Rossi in 12th, Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado in 13th, and Kevin Verbruggen in 14th. You got Bob Woodhouse 15th, Plumley 16th, Chen Steffen 17th, Michael Griesinger 18th, Alan Graham 19th, and Mats Linden rounding out your top 20.
Then we still have a handful over the page here. Kurt Clapper in 21st, Jonathan Jourdain starting 22nd, Roberto Pangrasi back here in 23rd. Sandy Banerjee starting 24th with Cam Porter along next to him here in 25th. Tobias Harnvey shares row 13 with Cam Porter. Then comes Jem Matson back here in 27th. Juan Jose Suarez in 28th. Tim Porter in 29th. Andres Bruno in 30th. And 3 more across here. Jake Evans. Oh my goodness. Togo Hisada starting in 32nd place. David Tomaski 33rd as we get the revs up on the racetrack. And a green flag has been dropped. A terrific jump from the number 2 car of Jorge Nieva. He's going to already take it 3 wide on the outside, and he's actually going to get pushed into the grass here as we approach the first chicane for the first time. And now we've got big problems in turn number 2. I count about a dozen cars collected and turned around.
Well, guys, this is not Talladega anymore. You're not supposed to have big ones.
No, it is not. And I mean, that happened at turn number 2 in the front part of the field. We see Laust Olsen turned around, and Andres Valenteus, your pole sitter, your leader, is going through the Tosa hairpin right now. He's probably looking in his mirrors and saying, did I jump a start on accident? He's 3 seconds ahead.
Looking back like, where is everybody?
Oh my goodness, it was very chaotic getting down here into turn number 2 and 3, also known as the Tamburello chicane. So this is the replay of that standing start. You saw Jorge Nieva get a terrific jump. He's screen left, and that blue and orange car gets pushed out just a touch there. And then it all unfolds right in front of him there at that turn 2 apex, and you see the entire field stacked up. Really nowhere to go with cars coming back out onto the racetrack.
Yeah, that's the standard thing when you come into corner number 1. You still got like cold tires, and you're still like a little bit tentative. You haven't got your sea legs on, so to speak. So those little contacts can happen so easily. But with these cars being so unbalanced, like you're so on the edge as is under braking when you're turning into the corner, a little contact can mean a lot. And doubly so when people are just coming into the first corner thinking, okay, I see cars spinning, but it's not going to affect me too much. I don't have to brake too much, right? Well, you do. And some people were being careful, being tentative, like braking into the situations. Others thought they could brake a little bit less, go through it faster, and as a result of that, get piling into the pile and adding onto the pile. And one more thing that plays into it, these cars don't stop on a dime, and they don't turn on a dime either.
We were watching Gary Ho get back onto the racetrack. Now, this is our leader in the number 1 car. He's got 3.5 seconds over John Olsen, who started today's race in 9th place, and now he has a 1.5-second gap over Seb Tixier. So things are kind of spread out a little bit here at the front. Jorge Nieva is in 4th place, and really that's where the racing begins back there, kind of inside of the top 5. Now, Jorge Nieva is right behind Gary Ho as Gary went off in the first Ravazza corner on the opening lap. So he got back on the track, and Nieva actually slipped off a little bit himself. But remember, this is one of those drivers that is in that top 5 in the points championship. Valenteus is running up front, but this could be a day that Nieva looks towards to claim some of those valuable points.
Absolutely does, if he can hold on to it. And these guys are now going to have to be very careful because they are in this draft pack and things are going to change a lot. Remember, we're just essentially 1 lap down, soon 2 laps down of a 20-lap race, so it's going to be a long night out here. You don't want to be making those mistakes. At the same time, in this pack, the most precarious of the situations is with Watson in 5th place, because he is essentially right in that 2nd spot. He's going to be the one who has to put pressure on Jorge Nieva, and if he doesn't do that, then Nicola Cocchi and Salgado and Robert Plumley are gonna be right there to take advantage, just like this.
And Nicola Cocchi looks up the inside. Oh, there's almost a little bit of door banging there in turn number 3, and introduced Marco Salgado to the party in that number 14. So these 2 cars were tripping over themselves in that first Tamburello chicane, and now it has become a 3, even a 4-car battle as we head up towards that turn 7 Tosa hairpin. All uphill here. You got to be careful on the brakes, but more importantly, you got to stand on the gas on that corner exit because it leads you into one of the faster sections here at Imola.
Yeah, so we're coming out to Piratella now, which is really turns to downhill after the apex of the corner. So you start going on throttle here, and then you already dread that Aqua Minerale corner. First apex is fast, but you have to brake before the first apex really to get the car slowed down into the tight uphill right-hander, after which you come into Variante Alta. And all this battling, it means Jorge Nieva has now pulled up a 2-second gap, so it's exactly what he wanted. And I think Nicola Cocchi, it was a valiant attempt. I think he was thinking Watson was gonna give the position up easy. Watson didn't. Nicola went up maybe a little bit too soon for his attack and engaged the battle, and that allowed the 4th place car to run away, which is not what you want to have to happen to you at this early portion in the race. Whoa!
And there he goes around. Nicola Cocchi got in too deep into the first Ravazza corner, and that is a tricky turn. It is downhill. You're carrying so much speed in these 49 cars. Gonna take a look at this GSRC replay here, and I don't believe that there was actually any contact between the two. The number 12 car of Watson did a fantastic job to avoid it, but it was just Cocchi getting a little bit too aggressive.
Yeah, just you can see exactly what we were talking about with the braking zone into the Vatsa. It's a downhill braking. Cocchi was going for an aggressive move, and it's a unusual place to go for a move really, because you have that long main straight, which isn't really a straight, but nonetheless a drafting position after that. So I mean, you're just gonna open yourself up for somebody to make that draft pass once again. So why go for that here? I don't know. Maybe Cocchi was sensing he can outbrake him and then just run away on the secondary Vatsa. A little bit too aggressive early on. Maybe it's the home crowd, maybe it's the pressure. You know, you're an Italian driver at Imola. Who can blame him for having some pressure? Nevertheless, he's gonna have now to he now has to get himself up back into that top 5 past some very, very fast drivers.
I agree with you, and I think that Nicola Cocchi is one of the faster drivers in today's field, and that little mistake there, it's definitely not going to end his race. It just kind of makes his mountain a little bit more difficult to climb as we jump around and check out some of these other battles here. Now, this is Michael Grissinger here in this blue and orange number 21. He's currently chasing that number 10 car of Gary Ho. I think that Gary right in front of him might have a little bit more pace. If we remember, he was the one that went off at the first Ravazza on the opening lap there. So I think this car right in front of Grissinger is actually catching that group right in front of him, as it looks like actually Nicola Cocchi is already back on the charge, made his way around the number 11 of Ben Zocco out there as we complete another lap. Click on over to lap number 5 of 20 that we're doing here at Imola. It is still nice and calm out front. I think the only change in the order is this battle on screen right here. So Seb Tixier, who has significant front-end damage, has caught up to the back of this number 6 car. That's John Olsen. So John's going to go to the left side. That's the defensive posture coming up here into the Piratella corner. It is a left-hander, so he's just kind of blocking that side of the road. But Seb Tixier has closed in this gap, and it's just going to be a matter of time until the opportunity arises and he can make an out-braking mover or out-accelerate him onto the front straightaway.
Yeah, you can see the mechanical grip still working for Seb Tixier, how well he got out of Aqua Minerale there, looking to the inside at Variante Alta. Not really a overtaking attempt into the upper chicane, but rather just showing Olsson that, okay, I'm here, what are you going to do about it? We come down to the Vatsa, and I don't think Tixier is going to make a move here. I think he's going to wait until the main straight. Just a side note, even with that front end damage, it's going to affect the straight line speed, no doubt about that. But thankfully, these cars don't have downforce as is, so you're not going to lose any front downforce as a result of that. That means Tixier can still be competitive, even if he made a mistake heading onto the main straight. Just look at that speed that John Olsson has. Wow.
Yeah, you know, this car that's chasing John Olsen is definitely hurt. I'm going to be curious, either that or he might have gotten a slowdown. I think that might have been what it is. Now, if you jump that Alta chicane, you can receive a slowdown here. So I think that's why Seb Tixier was so slow on the front straightaway here, because there I see him already accelerating past 145 miles an hour. So to explain that a little bit here, these chicanes, if you basically cut the course and don't take the chicane enough, Digital Barney out there, iRacing, says, hey, you know what? You're actually not on the racetrack. We're going to give you a little bit of a time penalty. It pops up on your screen, and the driver basically has to let off the gas, give up X amount of time, however much iRacing says it's appropriate, and then get back on the gas into the fight.
So you're going to hear that dreaded, they say you cut the course. You gotta slow down to keep up the time gained. And I'm the worst person in this booth to do that impression, but I chose to do it nevertheless.
You know, my favorite memory of that was a few years back when Max Verstappen got around Kimi Räikkönen at the Coda Triple Apex and somebody dubbed over that iRacing, and I was laughing my tail off. But this is Jorge Nieva, so we didn't catch this. Now, Jorge Nieva was up towards the front of the field. I believe he was running in the 4th place position, but then had a self-spin going down into turn number 9. That's that Aqua Minerale chicane down there. And he actually didn't make it to the turn 10 point. It was all on that initial braking zone. Ozzy, you had mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's such a tricky area that you actually have to get on the brakes well before your actual brake marker, because it kind of feeds in, it leans into that tighter corner.
Yeah, it's a terrifying place with any car, really. Very, very seldom you have a car that is balanced throughout that, because you come downhill, which is one thing, and then you sweep fast right, but you immediately have to brake. Even with faster cars, you have to sort of brake right after the first apex when your car still isn't balanced, when there is a heavy load already on the left side tires, so you easily lock up that tire. You can easily get your car unbalanced that way. But with these cars, when the braking zones essentially double or even more from your more modern, more typical machinery, it becomes even more difficult when you sort of have to coast through the first apex and then just have to make sure your car is well in balance for that second apex, which you know is coming up. So you have two choices. You can either attack it, take a chance each and every lap, or you lose 3 or 4 tenths. And Nieva was deciding to attack it and lost more than 3 or 4 tenths. He, in fact, lost 15 seconds and is now back in P8.
And look at the train of cars that's forming right in front of Nieva. So not only did Jorge have the problems early on, we were watching Nikola Kaki right in front of him have his own set of issues, but they're both back on the climbing wall going up to the summit. So they have caught a group of cars. Right in front of Nikola is Robert Plumley in the number 15. Robert kind of slides the tail going into the first Ravazza corner there, and then the second Ravazza is the most important part as it leads you out onto this front straightaway here. Doesn't look like Nikola's quite close enough this time, but firmly in the draft, right in the slipstream there. And if he can get around Robert Plumley quite quickly, only a second and a half up the road is those next two cars of Marco Salgado, Richard Watson. And I think that that's kind of the furthest you're going to go forward, at least if you're racing in this pack right here. No, Robert Plumley, who I was just mentioning, had an off right there at the first Tamburello chicane. So move Nicola and Jorge up one without even having to work for it.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that Plumley isn't really one of those drivers who is gonna set the track ablaze with his pure raw speed. It's more about his consistency and his ability to keep his car on track. But so it's gonna hurt even more when you don't necessarily have that speed, but you still make a mistake, and he just outbraked himself, didn't want to turn into the corner too late. I think that's the safe choice that you make there to avoid the spin. But the thing is that he didn't want to get on track in front of other drivers. So great job there by Robert Plumley, taking the additional time loss instead of risking everybody else by getting to the track too early. That's really something that a lot of drivers ought to learn from.
And I'm actually got my eye. Here we go. So this is Seb Tixier. Remember, he had that little bit of an issue a few laps ago. He fell almost 2 seconds back behind this number 6 car, but now it is a fair fight between the number 6 and the number 8 who's giving chase. John Olsen out front, Seb Tixier right behind, and have to remember that John Olsen really made up all of his positions and all of his ground on that first lap, and then he has done a terrific job not to make any sort of mistake, just go out there and run his laps, run his pace, and it is up to all of the competitors to find a way by. And right now, Seb Tixier is all over the gearbox of that number 6, just looking for that opportunity, but he's got to keep it clean, unlike what we saw a few laps ago.
Yeah, this is no doubt the best John Olsen I've ever seen on iRacing. Even if he, let's say, he got a little bit fortunate on lap 1. Let's face it, because not everybody could avoid that incident, even if they tried. But since then, he's done a great job. As you mentioned, he's held Seb Tixier back, and he doesn't really look like he's too bothered by Seb Tixier either. He's just hitting his marks, holding his line, not focused on those mirrors, which is what you see many drivers do who come from mid-pack and then they get suddenly up at or near the front, and they sort of get they forget what made them an improving driver in the first place, which is their consistency and their ability to keep it on the track. So he's not too bothered. He hasn't forgotten who he is. He hasn't forgotten that, hey, he can still drive a car, even if it's a multi-champion in Seb Tixier, multi-time champion in this series. Behind him, he's not too bothered, as we see a plume of smoke from, I believe, Valentieus out in front of them, just locking up the brakes, nothing too important, still hanging around. But now he has to make a decision. How hard does he want to defend this? We still got halfway to go. Does he think he can hold Tixier back the whole race? Well, let's see.
He's choosing the defensive posture like he has before, so Tixier is going to force the issue around the outside. Yes, he leaves some room, so a power move from the number 8 puts him up into second place. Can John Olsen come back going into the second Villeneuve chicane? He looks to the inside, a little bit of a fake-out move, trying to drive Seb Tixier in too deep, but looks like that number 8 car, even with the nose damage, has a little bit more pace than John Olsen right now. And I think that if I was John, I always say it, take out the pen and the notepad, start taking notes on what Seb is doing, because he's caught you, he's passed you, nice and clean. See what he's doing and maybe apply that to your own driving and pick up a few tenths maybe.
Absolutely spot on, Joey. Absolutely. I mean, when you are behind a faster driver, somebody who is usually in different portion of the pack than you are, you can just see what they're doing differently. Like there, for example, you could see Olsen coming in a little bit deeper onto the second apex and losing that exit speed. And oftentimes, people who are sort of a little bit in the mid-pack, who are not necessarily at the front, they think that they have to be more aggressive in order to be faster. Well, as you well know, Joey, and as I'm sure a lot of our viewers know as well, you don't necessarily have to do that. You have to focus on the exit, focus on the cleanness of your lines, especially with this car. Get a good exit onto the straight line and don't go on the throttle before you know you don't have to come off it. That's what Jackie Stewart said, and hey, he drove these cars in real life, so what do we know?
And to kind of talk about what Ozzy was saying is that, yes, we are road racing out here, and we got turns left and right. We got to stand on the brake. We got to turn the steering wheel. But really, all we are is glorified drag racers, because all we try to do is make the straightaway as long as possible. If you can get on the gas earlier than everybody else, that means you're on the throttle longer than everybody else. That means you've got a higher top speed than anybody else. That is the key to making a pass here in road racing. Yes, you got to make it through the corners, but we really are just glorified drag racers trying to make, oh my goodness, trying to make whatever top-end speed we can. As we were watching Valenteus flirt with the edge of grip over that Piratella corner up there, the tallest point here at this Imola circuit. And now we rise up the hill to this variant Alta chicane, turns number 11 and 12, using the curb just a little bit to jump it over there. And Valenteus, to just kind of talk a little bit about him, because we did just crest past the halfway point here. He's putting a second per lap on the entire field. Now, since Seb Tixier has gotten into that second position, it's kind of stabilized a little bit, but look at this. We're on lap 11, and he's got an 11-second lead.
Yeah, he's got a lead which is right now insurmountable. So one might wonder, why doesn't he slow down a little bit? Why is he still sort of teetering on the edge of disaster in some of those corners? Why is he still pushing so hard? Well, one of the reasons you have to maintain concentration, as Salgado has now made a mistake, car number 14, there's something happened to Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado, who I was also about to mention. He was back in 5th place, had made a great start, up almost 10 positions on his starting place, and now something happened. Let's see what. This is the Rivazza, and the first Rivazza is spinning out one of the hometown heroes. Well, not really hometown heroes, but Marco Salgado nonetheless, from the same area of Europe.
Yeah, definitely in that same region down there. Club Iberia is where Marco is from, and they got about the same amount of sun over there. I'm jealous. I'm up here in the Pacific Northwest on the west coast of America, and it's very, very early right now, only 7 a.m. And so, yeah, I could use some Italian, Spanish sunshine right now, but unfortunately, it's not working out for Salgado, as Ozzy was saying, just a little bit too deep into that first Rivazza. And oh no, Ozzy, you were saying Olsen looks a little bit slow on the racetrack.
Yeah, John Olsen up in 3rd place. He's lost about 8 seconds to Seb Tixier in this very lap. We'll soon find out what happened to him. It might be a self-spin. And, you know, that can sometimes happen when you follow a faster car. You start to sort of lose the back, then you start to run a little bit hard, and, well, you make a mistake, and you end up losing a lot more. So this is coming up into Tosa, and just a slow spin on the entry, and then it spins around sort of a little bit more into a half spin, and you have to trek it slowly back up the racetrack. That uphill is gonna feel like an eternity, gonna feel like he's climbing Mount Everest there.
And actually, Nicola Kaki just slipped by him going into the first Rivazza, so actually, I'm sorry. Nicola Kaki moved in front of Richard Watson, so he's got about 2.5 seconds up the road to catch John Olsen. That was my mistake there. And actually, it looks like Watson's going to try to come back fight on Nicola here into the first chicane. Nicola put the car right in the middle of the road, said, "Hey, bud, I've caught you a couple times." Oh, and there was another close moment as Watson looked up the inside, but the door was firmly shut, and because of that, it's actually allowed Jorge Nieva in that number 2 car. He's now only about a half a second behind that yellow and black number 12. So I think both Kaki and Nieva, after their early mistakes, have kept it, knock on wood over here, clean for the most part, and they're just picking them up and knocking them down.
Yeah, I think Kaki found that pass really elementary, my dear Watson.
Now up in front of this 3-pack here as we continue to watch it, because Nicola has about 2 seconds to go catch John Olsen. I think that it can be done. He's got about 7 or 8 laps to go and do it. And I think the big story here is Nieva. Remember, he was up in that 3rd, 4th position, and then he had the early spin. Yes, he has made it back, but when you look at that F1 Points Championship, Valenteus, he is out front, and when he shows up, it is really tough to beat him. But I thought that today was an opportunity for this driver as he catches it on the brakes going downhill there. Shows you how tricky that section still is. But I thought that this was a day that he could capitalize on those championship points, and I feel like some of them have kind of slipped through the fingers a little.
Yeah, definitely. And now it can be a frustrating situation. I've been there before myself when I thought that I might have a chance to win this race, or at least put in a good fight, be at least on the podium, and now you find yourself in 6th place, and you got a couple of guys ahead who are usually behind you, well behind you, and you sort of think that, okay, I should be past these guys. So, but you have to just kind of keep your head together. You kind of have to just essentially be recollect yourself during that race, calm down, and focus on what you can still grab. And what Nieva can still grab is a podium here. Absolutely. He just needs to time his passes right, not lose too much time with Richard Watson and with Ulsson as well, because I think what's going to happen here is Koki might just catch up to Ulsson. And that is really Nieva's chance. Once those two start fighting, we know Koki has been very aggressive in this race. I don't think he's going to wait out too much with that move. And then that's going to sort of pull up Watson and Nieva into that battle as well.
No, that we didn't catch it on screen, but a little bit further back in the pack, Cam Porter was able to dodge a dueling spin coming out of Ravazza number 2 the previous lap. He had about 4 cars lined up in front of him, and 2 went for a spin trying to get on the throttle, and he threaded the needle right through the middle of it. So Cam Porter still chugging along out there. He's currently up 6 positions from where he started, running around in the 19th spot. Up at the top of the racetrack here at Piratella, he's got Jan Steffen, that's the white car right behind him, giving chase. That's one of the cars that Cam was able to sneak by. So always one of the regulars here in the Vintage Series. Doesn't matter if it's the 49s, the 79s. I see him over in the Camels and IMSA Vintage stuff, and saw him on the iRacing Happy Hour broadcast and a Corvette C6R GT1 a couple weeks ago. So Cam Porter definitely not only one of the regulars here on GSRC, but you might see him just in a regular old road racing session too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like those guys who are just sort of regulars in any of the Vintage Series, especially because it's such a tight-knit group. They're all hanging around before the race. I've been part of those conversations when they're hanging around in Sunday session called voice chat or something, just talking to each other, chasing how they do, you know, up at the age where they all share their various inhibitments as we see a battle on screen.
This is the battle for what is 10th place. So it's David Rossi. Bob Woodhouse is in the green helmet there. He's easy to pick out. And then Robert Plumley is the 3rd car in train here. And they've all caught that red number 17. I think that Bob is kind of looking for a way around. You saw him kind of poke the nose up there into turn number 8. It's not generally a passing opportunity, so you just have to go up there, force that number 17 into a little bit of a mistake. Just keep the pressure on up here at the top of the hill at the Alta chicane. Everybody hits their brake markers nicely. It's actually Woodhouse that misses that second apex just a touch, kind of squirms around on the power down exit phase. Doesn't allow him that run up to Rossi that he was hoping for as we head downhill. We've seen so many cars here have trouble on the brake zone, but all 3 of them keep it nice and tidy. And here's that glorified drag racing part. The earlier you can stand on the gas, the better run you got down the straightaway, but they're all pretty equal distant.
Absolutely, and I just have to mention as we are watching this battle, I mean, with a name like Bob Woodhouse, you just have to drive a Lotus 49. It's just, that man has a perfect name for it.
It's a vintage name for a vintage car, isn't it, Ozzy?
Yeah. And you even the aesthetic, like the aesthetic matches, like, yeah, you just draw a black and white filter all over the screen, and there you go. You just got that classic 60s broadcast as we're now watching the 3rd place battle between Ulsson and Koki. And what I said was going to happen a couple of laps ago has now happened.
So I am curious here. How hard does John Olsen fight Nikola Koki? Because we do have about 4.5 laps to go for these front runners, and Nikola's caught back up to the number 6, and this might actually be the opportunity up here into the Alta chicane. Just a short run. Can you outbrake him? Nikola says, no, not going to happen here. Maybe I can get the power down just a little bit better, headed down into these Ravazza corners downhill, but excellent corner exit there from John Olsen right in front. But I think the curious part you see right behind is Jorge Nieva making the move on Watson, going downhill here. So as long as he can get the car stopped and get the corner exit out of the second part right here, he should be able to accelerate away from Richard Watson. But we saw this out of Watson and Cocky earlier. Richard Watson came to race. He is now right in the slipstream and might not be able to pull an out-braking maneuver, but I wouldn't doubt if he shows the nose maybe a little bit is right in front. There's the move from Nicola on John Olsen, so he gets that done into the first chicane. That is crucial for Nicola because if he didn't do that soon, Jorge Nieva is going to be right on his tail.
Yeah, and they got a lapped car in front of them as well. So crucially for Nicola, he didn't lose as much time, I don't think, as Jorge Nieva did making that move to the inside, because he did it after the long straight. He didn't lose any of the drive into the long straight. And just a more natural passing move when you pull out of the draft and pull alongside. Yeah, he still had to brake on a suboptimal line, but now Nicola Cocchi really has a chance, especially with this lapped car there, to pull off that gap, pull the gap that he requires. And meanwhile, John Olsen behind hasn't gotten dragged into Cocchi's pace. He's driving his own race. He recognizes that if I just follow the draft here, Nicola's draft, I have the best chance for a good finishing position. He doesn't want Nieva, he doesn't want Watson up into him as well, especially for those final laps. Meanwhile, Nieva, as we're watching on board of the driver behind him, Richard Watson, and I think I may have called him Robert a couple of times, apologies for that. It's Richard Watson. So, yeah, Watson is just watching Nieva, who is watching Olsen a couple of seconds ahead. We got 3 laps to go. Let's see what happens. It's going to be fascinating. I think Nieva is faster, but is he about the second a lap faster plus an overtake? Let's not underrate Olsen that badly. I think Olsen's going to stay ahead, but it's going to be close.
Well, and also, you know, having the pleasure of calling this series for a couple seasons now, you get to know a lot of these names, and Jorge Nieva is not really an ultra-aggressive driver. He will go up there and force the issue and make passes. I mean, it's one of the reasons why he's always up front. But he's also a championship contender, and he's got a smart head on his shoulder. So if the opportunity comes up, yes, I expect Jorge Nieva to make a move. But you're right, Ozzy. I don't expect him to go up there and go pile driving into that car right in front of him of John Olsen. This battle right here has yet to let up at all. It is still Bob Woodhouse in the green machine all over David Rossi, and here's an opportunity as Rossi gets stacked up on the exit there. Woodhouse goes to the outside. This is tough around the Tosa hairpin. If he can put the power down, he might be able to make it a drag race, and now it is side by side uphill into that Piratella corner. Can he hang on to it, or does Rossi force the issue? Woodhouse makes the pass around the outside.
So brave. Let's see what Plumley does. Can he throw it up to the inside into Aqua Minerale? Not quite. That move was there, but he didn't go for it, maybe smartly so. Taking the better side of caution there. And yeah, now you can see behind Robert Plumley as Rossi is following the tire tracks. You can see just how different these lines are. I think Rossi is a little bit more diamond in his approach, a little bit tighter of a line, whereas you can see Bob Woodhouse just using more of the racetrack, being more rounded, and they're still around the same pace. But you can just see how the approach is different between these two drivers, even if they're around the same position.
Terrific battle as these drivers come to 2 laps to go here at Imola. And you know, I had noticed this a couple times earlier in the race, Ozzy. This is our leader out front. And yes, he is 15 seconds in front of everybody. He was not involved in that opening lap wreck. There were several that were. I mean, we counted about 10 cars that were spun around, made contact or something. But I'm looking at our timing and scoring, and there has been only 1 retirement from all that. So despite the big one on turn number 2, lap 1, we still have we do have 31 cars still on the racetrack.
Yeah, what an absolutely beautiful afternoon here at Imola. you know, you got the Mediterranean sun blazing down on you, but it's not too hot yet because we're still in late April. At least they got no snow, unlike in Finland. I'm watching out of the window right now, and the last of the snow is still out there. So yeah, beautiful afternoon of racing. You see upwards of over 30 classic race cars out here, Lotus 49s just racing about, and battles all over the track. You got Audrias Valentierius, who is just showing to be class of the field once again, but then you got all these little battles, all these little stories that have developed throughout the race as we come to the final lap. And you, for example, this midfield battle, Bob Woodhouse and David Rossi and Robert Plumley and Kevin Verbruggen too, who is catching up to them, as is Vreco there in P number 14. Gotta be disappointed after the first lap incident, has now climbed up a couple of positions and maybe can take the fight up to these guys in the last lap.
I think you're right that probably the most interesting car of this group right here is the caboose on the train, the number 7 of Istok Vreco, because he started all the way up there in the second place position. So I think if we're looking at speed on the last lap, that number 7 car might go up there and force the issue as they take the white flag. So 1 lap to go here for this battle. We'll keep it on for just another second here as Rossi tries to run away from Plumley, and then it's really getting stacked up right there behind the number 17. So all of a sudden, things are definitely cracking off here at Imola in the late stages of the race. But we've got to draw our attention to the leader now because he is coming down the hill into the Ravazza set of corners. Andreas Valenteu started on pole position. He's the only car on the racetrack to do a 1-minute 40-second lap time during the race, and now he looks up towards Barney. He will claim the win and another checkered flag.
What a dominant performance from Audrius. The Lithuanian is just showing himself to be once again class of the field.
Did you see Barney asleep there? He didn't even wave the checkered flag. He realized that Andreas was so far out in front. He was like, is the race really over right now?
Yeah. Little bit of a nap. Oh, Nieva has come together with a lapped car, I think.
Oh my goodness, and this is into the Ravazza corners. Who was this? This was Jake Evans, who was way down here in 28th place, just got the corner all wrong, ends up taking out Jorge Nieva, one of the championship contenders, and this is that battle for what is 11th place. David Rossi is going to finish behind Bob Woodhouse. Robert Plumley right behind that, and there was a little battle between Vreco and Verbruggen on the final lap. Looks like it's going to be settled with Vreco there in 13th as the rest of the cars come across the line here and finish today's race at Imola. Was awesome to see 32 cars take the green flag and 31 cars finish today's race even after the big one. This is one of the final cars on the track here, Ozzy, coming around to complete the last set of corners.
Yeah, Chen Matson from Florida. Good job finishing on the lead lap, honestly, here at Imola. Gotta pay respect to all of these guys. It's not easy, as you have seen. Even the guys way out in front of the field, they have made mistakes. So Matson doing a great job with car number 29, finishing 21st out of 33, 34 drivers, I think it was on this field. So may actually get some R rating for his troubles.
And as Matson crosses the line, that is a checkered flag for everyone. So what we are going to do is take a quick breather and be right back with your official results and any post-race interviews. Welcome back to GSRC. You just watched the Lotus 49 series here at Imola. And Ozzy, we were noticing one of the championship points drivers fall down the order. Only one position, but we found the reason for it here on the last lap going into the first Ravazza.
Yeah, so essentially the last set of corners on the last lap, you can see some lapped cars ahead of that Jorge Nieva in that number 2 car, just kind of behind them, looking to take up a chance, looking to get past him as quick as possible. And then behind him, number 31 just outbraked himself. I think confused a little bit by the situation. Maybe something happened. Maybe there was a little bit of a mental lapse, whatever the cause, just piling into Nicola Cocchi on the last lap. And very fortunate, Nicola saw that coming. No, not Nicola Cocchi, Jorge Nieva. Nieva saw that coming on the outside, was able to straighten up his car, and as a result of that, it was a small contact and Jorge going straight out, because that could have been so much worse had Jorge just turned into the corner like you normally would, not expecting anyone to try and pass you behind or come alongside you when it's a lapped car, and then that could have been even worse, maybe with the car overturning. Nonetheless, fortunate to only lose one position there, but very unfortunate to have that happen to him by a lapped car on the last lap.
So we have our official results here. It was your pole sitter, the number 1 car of Andreas Valenteus, who claims a dominating victory, 16 seconds ahead of Seb Tixier in the number 8, finishing second. Nicola Cocchi with the up and down comeback drive does finish on the podium there in third. John Olsen in fourth with Richard Watson. Both of those cars fought it out all day long. Jorge Nieva slips down to 6th. Ben Zoka with a terrific drive up into 7th. Gary Ho into 8th. Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado finishes 9th. And Bob Woodhouse rounds out your top 10.
And then we go to next page, where we see that in 11th position it is David Rossi, one part of that awesome battle, as was Robert Plumley, who was running well in the top 10 before making a slight error. Istok Rekho, sadly part of that first corner incident, he started second and ended up in 13th. Kevin Verbruggen 14th, and then you got Lost Ulsen in 15th. Former iRacing Oval World Championship winner Sandy Bonnelier finishing in 16th. Then you got 17th place Michael Griesinger, 18th Kurt Clapper, 19th Cam Porter, and 20th Jan Stefan.
Then we've got 21st of Jem Matson here in the number 29 car. Then 22nd comes Juan Jose Suarez in 22nd there. Roberto Pengrazi finishing 23rd. Andres Bruno in 24th. Mats Linden back here in 25th. Tobias Harnvey finishing 26th. Alan Graham in 27th. Jake Evans, who we saw make contact there with Jorge Nieva on the final lap, finishes in 28th. David Tomaski, 29th. Tim Porter in 30th back here, only a couple laps down. Jonathan Jordan in 31st. Leo Sequeiro, 32nd. And those were the 2 cars, Leo and Togo, that did not finish today's race. All of the rest of them found the checkered flag. Some of them had damage, some of them were clean, but it was an exciting race nonetheless. And I believe we've got our second place finisher here, Seb Tixier, who is going to be joining us for the post-race interview. See if we can grab Seb right on down here. Seb, congratulations on a podium finish. How does second today feel?
Thank you. The start was very weird. I had a good start. Jorge was on my right, and then Izo and Nicola, I think they touched together, and suddenly the car just in front of me was super slow, and I ran into them and I lost my front. And also I was looking in my mirror. There was something arriving super fast. So managed to catch up on John. Made some mistakes. My car was okay even with the damage, but then after that I had like a lonely race. Sorry.
You mentioned it. I had to go back and look, and it did look a little bit like a Danny Ricciardo, Lance Stroll stack up right there in the first chicane. And you're right. It was very unfortunate that so many cars were involved. Now, when you were able to catch John Olsen, we noticed that you had to drop back a little bit. Question for you: did you pick up a slowdown somewhere when you first caught him?
Yes, secondary Vaza. I try to get the best exit as possible, and sometimes much more is not better. So I cut a little bit too much, and then I had a slowdown. Yeah. And for the start, I was discussing with Nico, and he told me you always have a bad result here. Always something happens. So I should have remembered that and stay away from him at the start.
Well, whatever you got to do to start claiming those wins again, use that as your strategy. But Seb, it was definitely an interesting race here at Imola. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to my team, Platinum Racing, Wade. And yeah, sorry for Togo, he has a disconnection, and well done to Odrios and Nico.
That was Seb Tixier moving up probably a position in that F1 points championship with the poor performance of Jorge Nieva today, but great job from Tixier. And I actually believe that it looks like Ozzy has caught up with our third place finisher.
Yes, I have, Nicola Koki. First of all, what happened at the start from your perspective? Did you guys forget that you're not in Talladega anymore? You're not supposed to have a big one?
I didn't race in Talladega. So first of all, let me say that I'm so glad to hear you again, Oceano, after all this time. It's a pleasure to have a chat with you again. And
Thank you.
And yeah, as Seb told you, that something of a course on me in Imola. Imola is my favorite track alongside the Nürburgring, but the Nürburgring has been good to me. Imola, it was very, very not good to me ever. Something always happens, and this time I had a better start of compared to Reco, because I was able to get alongside him, and after that I just tried to be on the inside as much as possible. I was right on the edge of the success curve, on the edge of the slowdown, basically. And when I saw that the other car was tightening even more, I tried to bail out. I tried to slow down even more to avoid the crash, but our tire interlocked. We were way too close. Honestly, I don't know what I could have done better, because I was using all the space available. Maybe the only thing I could have done better is just like getting a slower start.
Yeah, it's one of those things where essentially the only way you can bail out of that is to disappear entirely somehow. Yeah,
Exactly.
it sounds like a very typical too many cars trying to go into one spot at the same time incident. Well, Nicola, you mentioned Imola being one of your favorite tracks, and alongside the Nürburgring, of course, which we all love. And Imola is it's a lovely track. It's a flowing track. It's of course sort of like a home track. You being Italian, I know it's a stereotype, but you guys love Imola and Monza, especially the Italian tracks here. So, do you think that your love for the circuit and the how good you are at this circuit sort of plays a effect in that it gives you added pressure to perform a little bit better? Because we saw you going for some maybe over aggressive moves throughout the race. So do you think you just had a little bit too much adrenaline going on, too much pressure in that sense?
Yeah, I'm Italian, but for Imola, I'm actually like from the place, because I basically it's a 10 minutes drive from my house to the internal circuit, so it's really local. And I don't want to say that I was deliberately go for a more aggressive overtake, because that is something that I usually try not to do. But I realized that with this combo, with this car, it's hard to get like a very clean overtake anyway. So when you could see on the straight with this car, there is like a very big toe with this car, but the straight is too short, so you cannot close with draft, and you cannot be too close on the last two corners, because if you are too close, you are going to crash or risk to crash at least. So you really have to try to push for a later braking, because otherwise it's going to be basically impossible if the other guy goes to even like slightly defensive line. You are no way to go anywhere. So I think you are a little bit forced to try to do for some more aggressive moves, and this is going to add up the difficulty of staying in one piece, because Imola is a great track, but it's like a very evil track. You're not going to be saved if you do like a very even like the slightest mistakes.
Yeah, it's unforgiving is what it is. I've felt that a couple of times myself as well. Definitely not something to be taken for granted. So, Nicola, ultimately you were able to finish on the podium in front of your home crowd. Congratulations for that. And if there's anyone you would like to give a shout out to, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, thank you guys. I want to just have a shout to the community of 49 and Seb in particular, which I have a lot of chat during the week about the driving and stuff like that. And I really wish that we gonna have like Mick back, or even Michel back, or Topi's back. That would be like the greatest championship ever, even if I'm going to not be able to stay in the top 10. But it would be like a very good show to see from the outside anyway. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Nicola, and I second that request. Now, Joey, I believe you got a couple of people joining us in the broadcast booth. Do we have enough chairs?
Yeah, right. It looks like we've got both Porter brothers joining us again. Not only Cam, but Tim in here with us. Let's start with Cam. How was today? I noticed you having to thread the needle between some spinning cars midway through.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. A really thrilling race, though. I really enjoyed that one today. I didn't have a lot of practice coming into this race, so my qualifying wasn't as good as it could have been. And I gained a couple seconds actually during the race. I got into the 43s after qualifying 40, barely in the 44s. So I was happy with my performance today and made some spots up during the race. So really enjoyed that one.
So, Tim, let's toss it over to you. I know that you were a little bit towards the back of the field, at least in the qualifying effort, but what did you think of the big one? It was like an autocross there in turns 2 and 3, having to dodge all those cones and parts out there.
Oh man, somebody fed these hyenas after midnight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I went in here. It was, the eyes were bloodshot, the teeth were grinding, and the elbows were out. I fully expected to see some blood loss, and there certainly was. But I was lucky to get through. I could see the smoke up ahead, and I just slowed down a little bit, picked through, and just like that, I was ahead of Cam, which was a victory all on its own, man. But even at the back, all the way through, it was a fight. It was a contest of titans, man. Whew.
It was an entertaining one from the commentary booth up here. And guys, I just want to say thank you so much for coming out here and racing every week with us with the 49s. I know you guys hop in the 79s as well. Does a ton of iRacing. So just thank you so much for showing up week in and week out.
Hey, thanks, Joey. It's fun.
Thanks a lot, Joey. Really appreciate it.
So, can I, Joey, I interrupt here. I'm pulling an
of
audible
course.
here. So, Tim, you called it in Clash of the Titans, and you were ahead of Cam. Do we want to get the full story out here? Where you finished?
Well, I'm constantly chasing him. He's cheating a little bit. I haven't figured out how, but it's a constant fight about him. And eventually I'm going to be able to rub it in, and I'm getting in ahead of him there. Once upon a time, it's going to happen. I know it is.
And not finish 2 laps down, I'm supposed.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, bring
Joey.
that up.
Yeah, yes. You're welcome.
Oh, that was a little bit of a punch below the belt
Oh,
there,
yeah,
Ozzy. But
awesome.
Porter Brothers, thank you guys so much, and we'll definitely see you on the future shows.
Thanks, guys. We see you.
The Insa Vintage.
Yes, I'll see you there here in a couple hours, Cam Porter. And that is going to do it for us today here at Imola. Thanks to the team today, Bradley, Ozzy, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, website, and merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. And you can talk to us in that chat window. Next race is Lebanon, Saturday, May 4th, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And be sure to check out all of the other broadcasts here, including, you heard Cam say it just in a couple hours, the IMSA Vintage Series from Nürburgring at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.